And you've got announcements and discussions, Pedro. Take it away.
Yeah, the first point is just FYI. I don't think it's required to read, but we could expect Amy to be joining the next calls because of a transition that is happening, or a bigger restructure in the technical writing team. I don't have a lot of information about that, but yeah, you can check that issue if you're interested. Yeah, and the next point is about the change in, or setting a minimum priority for merge request UX bugs. I don't think you were around last time that we talked about this, Catherine. Were you?
I was.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so you're already aware of what this is. And Kai was going to follow up with Anoop to understand if everything is okay and if it's really something that is moving on and everyone's aware or not. So Kai.
Yeah, I had asked Anoop to follow up, and he and I have spoken since then. He still hasn't followed up, but
Okay.
I think the impression I got was that like this was the change, and in order to convey the intent, like that's why it was done. I think there's things that need to be addressed, but largely the other groups that are significantly impacted CI, right? Like they're the ones that are probably most impacted by this change. And then us, I guess. But I think people are aware. I don't know what it'll change for us. I've seen some like issues get triaged and like it just sort of automatically, because of this, like someone's like, oh, well, it has to be an S2 now. And I'm not quite sure that's the intent we wanted. So I don't know. I think we'll just see how it goes. But I would say we treat it as it's there, and then sort of make some judgments. I think even if everything is an S2, that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get to it immediately, right? Like I'm not sure that's quite what we wanted to do, but we'll see.
Yeah, do you think it would be worth bringing it up in one of the product communication channels? So not necessarily in Slack, but well, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll add it as a read-only to the agenda for next week's. Well, product only meets every 2 weeks, so it'll be like 2 more weeks before I do that. But I'll add it as a read-only for the next product meeting agenda, just so it's on the list. Yeah, it's probably the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not the only. I mean, the only group that is aware. I know that other product managers were commenting in the merge requests. But this is important. It's going to be automated someday. Not sure when.
Yeah, I know Triage is working on that too. Yeah, I think we just need to see what that does, because user experience is a broad category of things.
Yeah, it's everything basically.
Yeah. So which means, like, in theory, you could not have anything less than an S2, which is not what I think the intent was. Particularly like the way our automation works. Like, I think the goal was really that, like, the merge button, like things that impact sort of like that are very serious. Like the ability to like get your changes merged, I think was sort of where we were coming from. And it's now like got this all-encompassing like everything on the merge request page is that, which is not, I don't think, true. Like, I would argue the alignment of like text or something is not like an S2 bug, but under these sort of like new guidelines, like you potentially be forced to treat them as S2s. And I don't think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's see how this proceeds. We can always revert this or iterate if needed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I have the next point about the code review process problems, and we've had 37 finished responses. And I say finished here because I think 3 or more of them are not completed. So it's people that have left halfway or something like that. And out of the finished responses, 34 are from people that identify themselves as engineers. And actually, I don't know how many engineers we have. Let me see.
It's like 10%, if even. Like that's a fairly low number of engineers.
We have yeah. Yeah, I'm searching the team page, and with a very rough find command, we have around 352 engineers. Yeah. What do you think? Should we keep this open? Try to communicate it again in Slack or something like that?
I think we should communicate it again. I don't know, like, it's probably worth like asking Andre and Michelle like what the best way to get that to like engineering managers is, and get engineering managers to sort of like make their teams or get their teams to do that. Or have like
I would try one last push just to see if it comes in, more come in.
Yeah.
Or I guess engineering managers also could take it as well. I don't know if they have, but maybe they would know.
Yeah, I mean they could too. But that would be fine. I think it's just a question of like they might have a more direct communication path than we have.
Okay, cool. Let's do that then. Yeah, because I think it's very a low number of responses. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Catherine, would be a good percentage for this?
I mean, it depends. It depends. I think it would be nice to get up to around 50. I'd actually also say it depends on what the rankings are looking like. If there are patterns starting to come out from it, if they're kind of still all over the place and there's not really a cohesive thing there, then you would want to keep collecting more until you're starting to see a clear trend that you can actually draw some conclusion from. I think that's another part of it. If you're starting to see some patterns already, then you might be getting there.
Yeah. Is it okay if I share my screen with the results? I mean, I think everything is anonymous except the final answer. So
Yeah, we can always mark the recording.
Oh, you mean because of the recording? I totally forgot about that.
Or I can stop it if you'd prefer. It's up to you.
No, I think it's the only question that has personal details is the email address, and I can hide that. Yeah, I already hide it. So yeah, I can share my screen. Give me a second. Right. So okay, so this is the first question. This is the role question. What is the job title? And then, okay, rank these problems with merge requests in order of severity, one being the most impactful. So this is the amount of times that someone placed these problems as the top problem. And we can see that this purple one, which is dealing with large merge requests, is had 7, was placed number 1 7 times. And then after that, we have this orange one, which is knowing what happened since I last visited an MR. Yeah, I don't think this is the best visualization, but
Yeah, I think if you look below, these are a little bit challenging, but you could also kind of look at the the average. So since they're 1 through I think 14 and 1 is the most important,
yeah,
I believe the ones that are lower on average would be more important on average.
yes, correct. I think, yeah, so that would be this table would give us this information. So yeah, this is the one that has the lowest number. So dealing with large merge requests, knowing what has happened since I last visited an MR. Yeah, and then understanding the broader impact of changes.
Anyone have a question? I don't know if this is like okay to do. Can we modify the survey if we're going to send it out again and add an additional question? I think I asked about this in Slack, or the issue. I am wildly concerned that dealing with large MRs has such a high number of number ones and other things, given that this is internal and like
Right.
this company has such like a focus on small merge requests, and like that is the thing that we champion and say that we're great as a development org, and yet many of these people are saying like they have struggles dealing with large MRs. And so what I want to know, and I don't know if this like complicates the survey or baits it, but I want to know what people are defining as a large MR. I don't know how to like ask that, but I think we need to clarify what they mean by that. Is that like 10 files with 1,000 changes, or is it one file? Or like, I don't like, do we just ask them to like, what is your definition of a large MR? And then we get like a bunch of free text response that we've got to figure out? Or like, is there a way to do that without skewing what these results are going to be, but then getting that additional piece of data? Because that to me is arguably the most terrifying thing I've seen in our data.
So I guess I would say to minimize any impact to this existing survey, I would put the question after the ranking, just so that everyone had seen the same things up until the ranking, and then I guess whatever happens afterwards is fine. And you can go with a open text, or you could do a multiple choice that has like a defined range of, I don't know, changes or something like that, and then they could just select that. That might be an option. But and then like an other if they have something else to say about it. But yeah, I guess to keep things relatively the same, I would add a question like that after the ranking. And it would make sense since they had already seen dealing with large MRs as an option. Then it's like, okay, well, what's a large MR to you? Something like that.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I think it's fine if we add another question. Although I don't know if one question, like how do you classify something as being a large MR? I don't think it might be enough, because okay, we've narrowed down the definition, and maybe a lot of people think it's a lot of files, or maybe a lot of people think it's just scope that is very big, or maybe a lot of people think that it's no, it's just one file, or usually it's just with a lot of different lines that change, or maybe it's a lot of commits. So maybe we can hone in on what exactly is the definition for each person. But we would still need to do more research, right, to understand how people get to that state, and especially at GitLab, like you were saying, Kai, it's a bit concerning that people are placing this at the top. But yeah, I'm okay with adding another question. I mean, we have Catherine's validation, so that's
Yeah,
enough.
there's what is a large MR, and then there's why is it difficult to deal with them. But yeah, I wonder if those are. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think that's an interesting question to add. Why not?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think I want to know the why yet. I want to be able to like understand what people are talking about to make, like, we need a shared definition of large MR. And I guess we don't have a shared definition is sort of what I want. What I'm hoping like a question gives us is like the ability to then say, okay, this is what people think is this is like what people think is a large MR. And maybe that is significantly smaller than what we think of as large MRs today, and sort of like that whole performance workflow and like how you deal with those files. And like we need to refocus back down to like maybe it is like 5 files and 100 line changes people consider to be a large MR, and like we need better tooling for that, right? That's a very different problem than if everyone comes back and says, oh, a large MR is 20 files and 2,000 line changes, right? Like, I think we'd say, yeah, that is. And like, we don't have a good answer for that other than like, you should probably have a smaller MR. But if it's something that we think is like small and they think it is large and hard to deal with, then like, I think that's sort of what I want to know. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Yeah, it seems like, okay, just get the information on what is a large MR and see how common the problem is, and then you could follow up afterwards if to go deeper into why it's challenging working with that large MR, or how you even got to the point of having that large MR. That makes sense.
I almost wonder, Pedro, I know you're putting a multiple choice in, if we should just have it as free text and like let people sort of self-describe, and it'll be more painful to like synthesize that, I think, but I worry that structuring it in a way where you say lots of files or change lines or lots of commits or a large scope, or any combination of those things is like not going to be what someone thinks in their head, right? Like I
Yeah,
think it's just too nuanced to like distill down to sort of choices.
I would also, in this case, think to go with open text. Also, because when I was thinking about it, I thought it was going to be around the number of changes. So I think that's one thing like, that you just mentioned here. I didn't even think about all the other parts of what could be considered a large MR. So just keeping it open-ended so that they mention anything that's contributing to that perception would be good.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be comments, right? Someone might say like, oh, I get 40 comments on my merge request, and that like makes it large, even though it's like 100 line change, right? Like, I think it's just like if we scope it, we might miss the nuance there.
Right. Okay. Sounds good to me. Yeah. Yeah. I'll put it as an optional question, because like some people might not know how to answer that. Like, for example, I mean, I could say what a large MR is to me, but I actually responded to the survey because I mean, if we're doing this internally, I think we should also be open to answering it. But I placed, I think, almost at the bottom dealing with a large MR because it's not something that impacts my efficiency in the reviews that I do, right? So for me, defining what a large MR is, I don't know where I would start, you know, so it's not something that is top of mind for me. But I would imagine like the people that have placed it at the top would know immediately what their response would be to what a large MR is, you know?
Yeah, maybe we only make the question show up if you rank large MR in like the top 5. Like, I don't know if that's possible. Like if the question to like, if that answer was in the top 5, then like
I think
give them
so.
this additional question. And that way we don't have to get definitions of large MRs from people who don't think it's a problem, but we get it from like people who think it's a problem. And then we sort of like have a narrower group identified of people who think it's a problem. I don't know if that's
I mean,
bad, but
I think easier way, although I completely understand what you're saying, and that's what makes most sense, I think, when you're prioritizing the responses, is to look first at the people that have ranked the problem higher. But if we keep the question optional, we can still filter by the responses. So we can say, I only want to see the people have placed at the top 5 of dealing with large MRs, and then we look at their responses. So we can also do that with less changes, maybe.
Yeah,
yeah,
I would suggest that as well, since this question is kind of exploratory as well. So we might want to hear just in general what people are thinking. And then, like you were saying, filter in when it comes to actually prioritizing whatnot. So.
All right. Okay, so let's do that. I'll reach out to Andre and Michelle to see what they think could be good ideas to get more responses. And I'll wait for their response. I mean, as a last resort, we can just do another round of pushing out the message via the engineering weekly in review, the backend and front end channel. I didn't publish it in the what's happening at GitLab because I really hate spam. And sometimes even like the messages that people put there, they don't mean anything to me. So it's not what's happening at GitLab, it's what's happening in your department or something like that. So I'm really wary of putting something there that doesn't benefit like the vast majority.
Yeah.
But maybe the vast majority of GitLab is engineers.
Well, not anymore. That I think when you were saying like 300 engineers and then what's happening at GitLab is like 1,200 people, so there probably would be a lot of spam in that case. But I was thinking about it yesterday. Does engineering have a space like product and UX, those channels? Because the development one feels specific, but also like it's all of engineering. I don't know.
there's 2. There's development and there's EVPE. Like Eric Johnson has a channel, right? The EVPE channel that you could use, which also like does not get a lot of like posts in it, right? Like it's a very low traffic channel but high visibility channel, so it might be like a good way to like amplify that. And in theory, I mean, it's probably worth tagging Eric and like Christopher in that post and just be like, we need your support to like push this out. Like, I don't think there's an issue with like even tagging both of them and saying like, hey, we need you to like help communicate this out over your teams as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was just concerned about just going there and out of the blue, like as a bloodsucker, just using their channel to put out my message, you know. So yeah, a lot of people on this channel, I don't never post here. It's your channel, but I'm going to use it. But yeah, so I think yeah, reaching out to Eric to amplify the message is a great idea. Yeah, and I mean, anyone can answer the survey because not only engineers review merge requests, right? In the handbook, we have a lot of people that use merge requests. Almost, I think, I don't know, I would say half the company probably uses merge requests. So, of
That's
course, I
true.
think we're prioritizing engineer responses and we're giving that more weight. But I mean, any answer is a good answer and a good input if people are using merge requests for other things.
Right. Another dimension there would be how often they're doing the tasks that were in that, I think the first question, or was it the second one? That's like, how often do you do these? Do you review code, or how often do you?
Yeah.
I forgot the other one, but going for people who do that more often also is a way to look at that. And then also the job title. I think there are two ways you could
Yeah.
get into the importance
Exactly.
of that sort of thing.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And if someone answers never to both, the survey ends
And then they're
immediately.
just kicked out.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, why did I even come here? But hey, we say it's about code review, so hopefully they're doing code review at some point if they click on it.
Right. Okay. Let's do that. I have my to-dos on my end. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, the only one I'll put on your radar is I tagged you in an issue from Camille about sort of like merge request dependencies and auto retargeting of branches. I just like your product hat thoughts on it and how it fits into sort of that space.
Okay, cool. I'll look into that.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. See you.